we have had a fantastic partnership with University of Kansas for several years, and they have done some amazing things with our automation platform. And they're here today to talk about some of those challenges that were unique to higher ed and how they've solved those challenges using our platform. And then we'll dive into a little bit of background on ReadyBots, and then finally we're going to take a look hands-on. Andy will be demonstrating some of the solutions and how they've used the technology to solve these problems. But first, from a business perspective, I'd like to turn it over to Jim to talk a little bit about some of the challenges that the university had in their IT operations.
Right. So for those of you who work at higher eds, you realize that one of the biggest issues that you will face is that you have a few staff to do a lot of work. The teams that I operate handle enterprise platforms, which is our VM infrastructure, storage infrastructure, load balancing. I have a team that handles Linux servers, a team that handles Windows servers, and a team that handles our applications, our Microsoft core applications, and some of our other enterprise applications. And all of those people together, including me, there's 16 people. So what we find is that we wear a lot of hats. We have a lot of work to do, and that's probably the biggest challenge we run into is really needing to find ways to be more efficient and to get things done quicker and get things done in a reliable manner. And that's really where ReadyBots has been a big plus for us, because it really allows us to automate a lot of our work. Automate a lot of the routine things we do, and we spend a few cycles building the automations, but then it just does the work for us. One of the examples, and I don't know if Andy's going to show this one or not, but we migrated 60,000 mailboxes to Office 365 from our on-premise Exchange servers, and that was all done with ReadyBots automation. So when it was your turn to be moved, you got an email message saying, hey, you're going to be moved. The moves were all staged and scheduled. When the time came to finalize the moves all finalized. And once you moved, you got a message saying, hey, you've already been moved and enjoy the new mailbox. All of that was completely automated and soup to nuts. And people didn't have to do that work. We just basically built CSV files that had the list of the mailboxes to move, and then ReadyBots took care of the rest of it. So anyway, the biggest challenge for us, I think, is just being able to move into automation and being able to deal with the limited resources that we have in order to get things done.
Yeah, great. Jim, one of the areas that I know that the guys have been quite effective in is automating some of the service desk operations. And I think there was some unique challenges around the service desk and use of student labor to staff the service desk. Are you able to talk a little bit about the challenges there?
Sure. Our help desk, the customer service center, is manned by 3 full-time staff, and pretty much everybody else that works there are students. We try not to provide escalated access to students, elevated access to students. So, we've used ReadyBots a lot to give them the ability to get information and take actions that would normally require, privileged access. And that's really paid off for us. We have automation plays out there that allow you to, query lists of individuals or query individuals based on whatever criteria you want. And then you can take actions that are built in to those plays. So that's, you would never give a student hourly the ability to log into Active Directory and query an object, or to find out what attributes it had. But through CloudBridge, or through ReadyBots, we essentially just give them a play that they can run. It runs in the background with the privileged access, and then they can take a predefined set of actions based on what we've set up for them.
So Jim, when we did a recent ROI study with you, and we looked at a lot of the tasks, the automations that University of Kansas had been running, and then categorize those. And one of the things that came out of that was zero trust. Yep. When we looked at those tasks, zero trust was one of the key benefits. Are you able to talk a little bit about, what that means to the university and how that's moved you forward?
Well, it kind of goes back to what I've been talking about already, and the fact that um, the we can provide privileged access to a lot of our users, or provide access to information and actions to a lot of our users that we normally wouldn't hand them as a normal course of their job. We're not going to give you credentials to log in to a lot of the servers and services as an administrator, but we will give you the ability to run a query in the background and takes predefined actions based on that. We've built a couple other zero trust applications as well. If you want to become a domain admin in our environment, you actually have to elevate, and that gets logged, and there's a handful of things that are out there like that. So it's like I said, it's been a game changer for us, because we're able to provide access to people who normally don't have that kind of access. We let them perform actions, and we allow them to do things that you wouldn't normally allow a non-privileged user to do.
Right. Okay. Terrific. Thank you. So, Jim, the university's been using the READI platform for a few years now, and but before you had the READI platform available to you, undoubtedly there was quite a bit of scripting, and every organization has automation, although it may not be sort of called automation, but it's a lot of native scripting and so on. And most orgs have a lot of benefit by taking those legacy scripts and moving them into the READI platform. Are you able to talk about the value of being able to centralize everything and govern it under the platform?
Yeah, for sure. It's been big for us there. The There's a lot of things that happen at the university in the normal course of our job, where an administrator or a privileged user will run an operation that is based on a script, and then they'll stash that script away in their own private archive of scripts. The fact that it's sitting out there in ReadyBots allows us to share that wealth around, so that if I can, for example, my background is in Exchange and Active Directory and Mailflow, and there's a lot of times where I would build scripts to do something, and it would I might share it with somebody else, and they could run it. But when we put that in ReadyBots, everybody can do it, and it's documented. We actually the code is protected. It gets worked on, so you don't have to rely on my poor scripting ability to actually grow it and to give it a life cycle. Other people can improve it, and it's been very nice. I mean, it's really been a game changer for us. I mean, we started working with the ReadyBots team. You heard me call it CloudBridge earlier. That was their old name, and we started working with them back when they were CloudBridge, and it's probably been what, 7-8 years now.
It's been it's been
a while.
A handful, yeah.
Yeah, and it has slowly grown over time. And we talked about we just renewed our license, and we talked about the possibility. What would we do if we didn't have CloudBridge? And it's pretty startling, the amount of code we have out there and the number of things that we're doing with it.
Yeah.
So it's really a game changer. Andy will show this off in a little bit, and you'll be able to see just how powerful the platform actually is.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you, Jim. I appreciate that. So for those that have not been exposed to the READI platform and this is their first glimpse at it, I'd like to just take a few minutes and just do a little bit of background, and then we'll jump over to Andy to have a look at some of the hands-on use cases that they've addressed with the READI platform. So it's all about automation. That really is what the READI platform is. And when we talk about automation, organizations do have a lot of choices. We see big name products like UiPath and Automation Anywhere, Ricardo, and there's many more, right? Many organizations have technologies, ITSM technologies like ServiceNow. There's many options when we want to talk about automation. And so the first thing I like to do is to sort of divide things into two camps, and that is front office and back office. And most of the automation technologies that are out there today are designed to automate business processes. And that's a fundamental difference between the READI platform and those technologies. The READI platform is really all about the back end. It's all about connecting systems and data and manipulating settings and security and reports and the kinds of things that IT people do. And those people look very different than the people that are in the front office, and their skill sets are very different. So there's the right tool for the right job. And when we look at the back office, we find people that are technically competent and understand what they need to do, but will struggle with the front end tools because they're designed for a different type of person, a different type of task. Likewise, if we were to take the READI platform and put it in the front office, our front office users would struggle because this is a platform that's designed for the back office. So very different target audiences. And so when we talk about automation, a lot of organizations want to automate, but are struggling with blockers. So we would take a look at what some of those blockers are. First one we often see is expertise. A lot of the automation technologies require people that are trained, certified on that technology, and they become very rare commodities. They're difficult to get, they're expensive, and they tend to move around a lot because they have opportunity. The next one is when organizations build these things, they're sort of the build versus buy type of mindset. And people are afraid to build because when they build these automations, they have to maintain them over time. And that becomes a technical debt, a liability. So that's sometimes a reason for people to hesitate to move forward with automation. And then the last one, and the one that I think is probably one of the biggest ones, is mindshare, which is just, where do I start? We know that we want to automate, but it just seems like I've got to climb this mountain before I can get any business value, and it's one of the big blockers. So to address these blockers, the READI platform was purpose built for IT people, for IT operations, specifically designed to address these blockers. The first one, the expertise side of the house, our bots, if you open the hatch and look inside the bot, it's PowerShell. And that's a language that every IT admin knows. It's also a language that is supported by the IT community. So if I wanted to create, let's say, a bot to disable a user account or assign a license or put somebody into a group, in 2 minutes, I can go onto the web, search, and there's the PowerShell code to do it. So I can literally, for most of the things that I want to do, I can take that, copy, paste, and put it inside the bot. And I now have a bot that can perform that function. Now that leads into the next blocker, which is maintenance. If you're building automations as big, complex, linear type architectures, they become fragile and difficult to maintain. And a lot of organizations are scared to death to touch those automations once they're built. Our approach was a Lego block approach. Build the Lego blocks and then allow you to click them together. And the Lego blocks are bots. And so inside of a bot, you have that little bit of PowerShell that puts somebody into a group. And if that logic needs to change, or the API changes, or whatever it is, you just have to go to that one bot, and that bot can be reused as a Lego block in your solutions. So we've made it very easy to maintain these automations over time. And because the skill set requires an admin who's reasonably savvy with PowerShell, it's very easy to maintain the talent to maintain these automations. Finally is mindshare. And that's where our bot architect services come in. We understand that for a lot of organizations, they just want a problem solved. They don't want to become masters of automation. They will undoubtedly get there in time, but initially they just want a problem solved. And that's where our bot architect services come in. And that's where our partner Optiv really comes in. Optiv provides a lot of the automation services that go with our READI platform. So if we look at a typical automation, and we look at, let's say that you don't have any automation platform in order to solve problems. We're now looking at just about every organization out there. Every org, every IT guy has written a script to go solve a problem, right? You spent a Saturday writing this script, and Monday morning you activate it and the problem gets solved, and it's awesome. But a lot of what you end up doing is building all of the plumbing. It's addressing all of the things that need to be addressed just to get to the start line where you can actually go and solve the business problem. So it's everything from, well, how do I securely obtain and maintain credentials? How do I store that script? Where do I store it? How do I run it? If I need API endpoints, how do I get that? I might need to stand up a web server. If I need to persist data, it goes on and on and on. And so we think of this as the 80-20 rule. 80% of the work that goes into automating in a native environment has no business value. And the small portion of time remaining is spent actually trying to solve the business problem. And that's really what the READI platform is all about. We change that equation so that you can spend your time focus on the business problem while the platform eliminates all of that plumbing. The platform provides all of those services so that you can have secure, governed automation and focus just on the business problems that you're trying to address. That's what we call our core automation. That's every customer right out of the gate. That's take your automation that you have right now, your scripts that you have that are ungoverned, and just copy and move them into the platform, and you now have governed, secure automation. But it doesn't stop there. Because we are so focused on IT and our team has deep IT roots, we've built the READI services layer into the platform. And that's what gives you the ability to do advanced things without a lot of code. So whether it's building a connector to a system for managing entitlements or provisioning, for directory services to be able to have a centralized directory, approvals, you need to have your automations have some sort of an approval process. It's all baked in, and that's all part of the READI Advanced Services. So moving on, let's take a look at how University of Kansas has implemented some of their automation. And for this, I'm going to turn this over to Andy, and he's going to share with us, and it doesn't have to be in this particular order, Andy. I just have a couple of key areas, but feel free to present in whatever order you like.
Okay. I think you have to stop sharing before I can. There you go.
Yeah.
Nice. All right, so let me get my screen up. Yeah, so like has already been discussed, one of the main pressure points is we have a lot of tasks that are that require elevated permissions. And before, it was the case where if someone needed something done that required elevated permissions, they'd have to reach out to our team by creating a ticket. Our team would be monitoring that and catch it on some frequency. So there's some sort of delay before that would actually get brought to the attention of the admins on the back end. Then they would execute that task. So there's inherently people involved, and there's inherently a delay of time involved. So one of the big things that we wanted to figure out is how do we make those tasks available to people where appropriate to do those tasks without having to have direct access to those credentials. So one of the things that I've built is this all user script. And this is just a a very basic gathering details from a lot of different systems that pulls together, who they are, where they work, what their title is, all the information about their mailbox or their phone number, and then who supports them. And then what I've done is I've gone in here and added right-click actions. So if I went in here and looked for myself real quick, in here, you can right-click on me, and then there's all these sub-menus. So in here we have, troubleshoot identity, unlock 80 accounts, email, you can do message tracing, Skype, there's a whole lot of them, setting delegates or forwards or simul rings. And essentially all of these are just PowerShell scripts that we had before that could have been ran by the IT admin on the back end. And what we did was we brought them into the platform and then made them available as right-click actions. And then through the platform, we have different sets of technical support staff imported into the system and given a specific role. And then that role is determining whether or not they can actually run these actions on specific people based on if they support them or not. We have a pretty complex support structure where, there's up close to 100 people that are supporting folks, but they all support different segments of users across campus. So we want the people that support the provost office to be able to run actions on the people that work in the provost office, but we don't want them to be able to run actions on people that aren't in the provost office. And the platform is really nice because it lets us set up that matrix and set up these actions to run as elevated accounts. And it has all of the logging and everything in there to make sure that we know who's doing what and when. And then a lot of the things that I mentioned before that took time and people have now been completely removed to where if someone gets a request in to do an action on an account, they can just go into the platform, find that person, right click and run it. And technically it's running as an elevated service account on the back end, but it's all within the bumper lanes, if you will, of what we have set up of what's acceptable. So that's one of our primary things that gets a lot of usage just because of the sheer amount of support staff that we have. Another one that Jim mentioned earlier was our AD domain admin elevation tool. This is very similar to privileged identity management in Azure, but this is on-prem with our on-prem AD infrastructure. Essentially, I just wrote a few scripts, bots in here that will just say, I want to come in here and add myself as a domain admin. It'll pop up and say, who is it? And this does a lookup against a specific set of users that we want to be able to become a domain admin. How many hours, just to drop down with a number, and then the state the reason for elevating. So if we want to be able to make sure that when people are elevating to that domain admin level, that we're capturing why they're doing it, and we're also setting a timer so that it can't just be forever enabled, because that's one of the security attack vectors that we want to make sure we minimize. And then that keeps a log, and then there's another recurring one that goes in and cleanup and essentially just compares, is the amount of time passed since you enabled it and the amount of hours that you said you needed it. If so, let's remove you from domain admins and then change the status on this log. So we've replicated that once. We also have a database admin manager, which is essentially the same thing. We have a large number of databases at the university and a database admin team that needs to be able to go in there and do things, but they don't need to be, they don't need to constantly have that domain ad or DB admin role. So they can come in here and elevate in a very similar manner. And then one other thing that is pretty nice that Jim mentioned is that when we were moving to email in the cloud, we built a lot of automation in the platform around, we would create a CSV and put it on a network share somewhere, and then the platform would go out and scrape that in. It would go through and create batches for migration, start those batches based on properties, and then it would even send out emails to individual users saying you're about to be moved. Then they would move them, then it would check if they are moved, and then if they are, then it send another email saying, hey, you've been moved. And then as a part of that project, we needed to be able to present that information to upper management. And one of the nice things is that you can pretty readily integrate with Power BI. And Jesse Kaufman, one of our other IT admins at the university, built this dashboard to be able to kind of just show the breakdown of all of our mailboxes, whether they were on-prem, user mailboxes, shared mailboxes, and then just the total numbers and total size for everything. And this is just a pretty simple Power BI. You can see we're 100% migrated now. Huzzah. This is a pretty simple Power BI dashboard. And the thing that really made it work so well, I can kind of just show real quick in here. If I go to just any bot and I go to here to the actual script itself, and I just went in here to command builder and REST API, I can just change the syntax to Power BI and then pick this bot or whichever bot I want to target, and then just say copy command, and that will give me a command. Then I can just put it in here for now to show you. Oh, it's not in there, but it's on my clipboard. That just is in the syntax that Power BI needs, and you can just paste that into Power BI. It will connect to ReadyBots, use the REST API to gather that information, and then just import it directly into Power BI. And then you can go the extra step of creating the dashboard in Power BI, which is really helpful. And we've probably done it, 6 or 7 times now, and it's honestly a game changer in being able to just very easily, without having very much technical knowledge, to be able to pull the data from the platform and put it into Power BI and create a nice dashboard to show everyone. And then, as you can see, just in general, we've like Jim said, we have quite a few things that we've done in the platform now. It's been several years, and honestly, we've got dozens and dozens of use cases, internal IT groups that are now doing things in the platform versus running scripts themselves. We've got support staff that weren't running scripts previously, but are now able to run things because it's in the platform. And we even have a handful of instances where end users are given access to come into the system and run actions against very specific, narrow scoped things. So yeah, it's been a great tool to help us in what we're trying to do.
We're getting ready to migrate 45,000 seats of Skype for Business on premise to Teams Enterprise Voice in the cloud, and we will do that with ReadyBots. We will build all of the actions in there, and then when we kick it off, it'll simply be a go in, trigger an action, it'll work, trigger bot, it'll work, and it'll be done.
Yeah, and by extension, we can take that action and make it available to the support staff. So if in a scenario where we wanted to move, onesie twosie, we could say, hey, when your support staff deem that it's most appropriate for you to run, we can just make it available for them to go in and right click your user object and say move you to Teams. And that kind of paradigm can be used for whatever action that is scriptable with PowerShell, which is essentially just limited by your imagination.
And Andy, have you had any challenges in terms of being able to find the scripts and the ability to get the job done?
Not really. I think that PowerShell is the perfect tool, especially given what we work with. We're mostly a Windows shop when it comes to most of our backend things, and between just finding things on the internet or going out there, and there's also, I believe, if is that just in here? Oh, I think I'm not sure, but there's a how do you get to the place where you can download the stuff for the different modules?
Sorry,
no, you're fine. Just to be able to pull down like the team solution or the different
the solution store, you mean?
Yeah, what I'm getting at is there's a solution store in the platform as well that you can go in there and see published modules from ReadyBots themselves, or you can if there are other ReadyBots customers that have a module that you hear about, they can pretty easily wrap that up, copy it, and send it to you. And then obviously just reaching out to ReadyBots support has been great. Specifically, Stephen Bureau is amazing. You can just reach out and say, hey, I need help with XYZ, and he'll make sure to get you hooked up.
Yeah, one of the nice things is that every node that you see in this tree, as you've seen, Andy, that you can right click on any node, which is potentially a bot or an entire solution, and you can copy it to your clipboard. Mm-hmm. And then you can literally like paste it in somewhere else if you want. So it's everything is very, very portable, not just within your own tenant, but between tenants. You can also dynamically share data and solutions with anybody else. So if you built something and you want to give it to somebody else, you can do that very easily. Andy, one of the things that you've done, and I think working with Stephen, you mentioned Stephen, is often delegating access to Stephen or to others to be able to go in and assist with a solution. Do you want to talk about how that's worked for you?
Yeah, when either my own coding or some quirk with the platform comes up, just reaching out to Stephen and saying, hey, I need help with XYZ, and he'll often say, can you just delegate the support contacts and myself access to that script, which is pretty nice because you can just put in a user in your tenant or one of the ReadyBot's email addresses and say, hey, share access on some level. You can give them access just to view it, to run it, or to be a full owner. And that really helps to be able to set up their backend engineering department to be able to go in and access your tool live and to troubleshoot it in the actual system. So it makes it pretty easy when you're trying to convey some issue or some problem that you're running into. You can actually just share the permission to them, and they can just come and hop into the platform and see exactly what it is that you're talking about.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Andy.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it was you or Jim that mentioned that there's been some interest in other areas of the business, other aspects of IT around being able to use the platform to help solve problems. And I'm recalling, Andy, one case where I think it was the web team. They needed to persist data and be able to present it, and you were able to help them out with the platform.
Yeah, our web team has an internal process where they're requested to be able to host data behind a REST API that is consumable by another application, and they said that they'll have to spin up a VM, install an application, configure that application, import the data just to be able to get data behind a REST endpoint available. And when I was talking with, I can't remember how it started, but we essentially mentioned, if you just need to be able to pull data in and then present that through a REST API, ReadyBots does that so easily, and you don't have to have any of that overhead of the VM or the application or the configuration or anything like that. So you're able to go in here. Let me pull up my, I think it's the environments. Yep. So you can create any number of environments, which are essentially just siloed instances of the platform, where you can say, our web dev team is going to be full admins of this web dev instance. And earlier I was just in our prod instance, which is just the instance that I've built everything in, and that's why it's taking a second to load, because there's so much in there. But the web dev instance is just a little slice that we're able to say these specific users are full admins of their instance, and they can come in here and build anything they want. We gave them, a primer on how to use the platform, and they essentially just went in here and were able to build, KU courses, locations, and faculty insight APIs. Where it is, and I guess I've alluded to it, but one of the nice things with any of the bots in here, if I just went to something, let's just say all computers, and I went to the properties of this, went to the permissions, it's already checked, but I could say allow other ReadyBots to read this bot's data, or I could come down here to REST access and say allow this bot's data to be read via REST. If I click that, and then I went in here and copied a reference to this script, it would essentially just pull in the URL in the formatting of the language that you need, either PowerShell or a couple others, and it would include, the URL and the key, so you could go in there and just copy that string, paste it into your program in whichever language that is, and it's able to reach out to the system, gather that data, and bring it back in a format that's consumable. And just being able to go in here and say one checkbox and then copy a string, that is infinitely simpler than spinning up a VM and an application and configuring it and everything that went into their previous processes. So they've been able to save time and effort and resources on things that they do quite often, just by taking advantage of a relatively small feature within the platform, but it was huge for them.
Yeah, and I would imagine the technical debt that comes along with all of that infrastructure, where this gives you just a single point, put the data in there, turn it on, and it's instantly available.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think there's probably more use cases in our organization where that could be helpful. And we're just, slowly reaching out and telling people about the platform and bringing more folks on as time goes on.
Andy, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I know that when we did the ROI study, you had talked about a few tools that you had replaced, that you were able to eliminate as a result of having the platform in place. Are you able to cite any examples there?
Most of what we replaced, I'm trying to remember what I was referring to, was mostly just on premise. Like if we had a server that had scripts on it in PowerShell, we had people that were logging into terminal servers and running those scripts. So we were able to bring those into the platform so that we didn't need to have that terminal server act as that function anymore. I'm trying to remember exactly what I was referring to back in the day.
Maybe around BitLocker or something. There was something to do with a security split.
We do have all of our well, essentially anyone familiar with BitLocker knows that there's several options available for how you obtain those keys. You can get it through Active Directory itself, which or you can do it through Azure. And one nice thing is that data is just available through the Graph API. So we built another solution in ReadyBots that just says, input a machine's name, I'll reach out to the Graph API and get that BitLocker recovery key for you. So we were able to simplify the tech experience from having to know, do I go to Active Directory for this? Do I go to Azure for this? Where do I go? And essentially from the get-go just said, for all BitLocker recovery keys, just go to ReadyBots. Go to the thing that says BitLocker recovery key, type in the machine name and hit go, and it'll go out and reach out for it for you, which was just a great thing to be able to simplify the instruction and onboarding for those support techs when we rolled out BitLocker to everything.
Great. Thanks very much, Andy. Anything else you'd like to showcase?
Like I said, it's an amazing platform, and it's really setting you up to be as creative as you want to be. And you can bring things in that are pre-built, or you can make your own custom scripts. So it's really a great platform.
Great. Thanks so much for taking the time to show the great stuff you've done.
Definitely.
I'll circle back to Jim for just one moment. And Jim, you mentioned that you recently just renewed your license, and obviously, there's cost associated with that, and I know that there was an ROI study that was done.
Yep.
And I know that internally you always have to justify where you're spending your money and making decisions. And I'm curious, from the university's perspective, what would the impact be of not having the READI platform going forward?
So I would say, when I talked to the CIO and our financial team about funding ReadyBots, my calculation was that over the span of a year, it probably did the work of 3 to 4 engineers in terms of the time we spent on it. One thing that is true is that when you have a tool, you use the tool, and if you don't have a tool, you don't use it, and you just skip doing those things. But honestly, it's the amount of information that we can deliver to our edge support staff using ReadyBots is a game changer. And I would say that if somebody were actually to call us every time that they wanted that information, it's probably more than 3 to 4 FTEs to do that. There's a list of things we just wouldn't be able to do without the platform. Pushing a lot of the functionality, when Andy showed the all users code, pushing a lot of that functionality to the edge is just not a possibility if we don't have ReadyBots. So it's a force multiplier, and it's a big game changer for us. I would say that getting rid of all the stuff we would just say we wouldn't do, it probably is still 2 to 2.5 FTEs of time that it takes. But as we use it, it's probably 4 or more FTEs worth of time that we take to do all that stuff. It's really been a game changer for us. And the thing about it is, it's kind of funny because when I go into meetings and somebody's talking about being able to do something, inevitably what I say is, I know a guy who could do that for us. And then I call Andy and I say, hey, bud, can you write this in CloudBridge? And he'll tell me, yeah, give me a couple days to do that. And then a half an hour later, he's like, here it is, it's done. I'm testing it now. So it's great. I mean, it really is. Andy, I think the thing that I would say, and Andy said this, it's up to your imagination. What do you want to be able to do? And if it can be automated, CloudBridge can do it. And we started really small. I mean, like that all users code started with me just saying to Andy, hey, can you pull the users from this source and this source? Give me a comparison and something that I can regenerate. And it just kept growing and growing and growing. And you know, I would imagine that before the end of this month, they'll probably add new functionality to it, because somebody will say, hey, I'd like to be able to do this. And he'll just write the code, and then he'll bring it in as a right click menu as an action to the user. So it's grown organically, and just as you come up with things that, hey, we do this a lot, let's turn this into CloudBridge. Now, there was something yesterday, Andy, even I said that we needed to turn into CloudBridge. I don't remember what it was, but there was something that had to do with email.
Where essentially you wanted me to be able to make an action that said for our staff to be able to pull the configuration for a shared room.
Right.
To be able to see if it's like an auto accept, or if there's a delegate approval, or essentially pull the configuration for an exchange room account.
Yeah. Because right now that's you have to know half a dozen different PowerShell commands to be able to glean that information. But it'll take Andy 45 minutes to pull that together in a neat package, and then he'll be able to present it as a flyout, so somebody can click on the room, right click on the room and say, give me all the details, and it will show them everything. It'll show them the calendar processing, it'll show them the delegates, it'll show them the the permissions on the folders, the whole works.
Awesome.
So yeah.
Good stuff. Well, thank you so much, Jim and Andy, for showcasing your use of the READI platform. For those that might have joined late, just know that KU has been a longtime customer. Jim refers to CloudBridge, which was the original name for the product, and it's evolved into the READI platform. But yeah, thank you so much, guys. It's been awesome to work with you, and really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to share with others and give them some insight into the kinds of things that they could do as well. So we'll open it up for questions. We've got about 10 minutes left. If anybody would like to ask questions, you can unmute, and we'll try to address your questions.
This is Nikhil with Optiv. So, question for Jim and Andy. Starting from day zero, where you didn't know anything about ReadyBots, to where it is now today, how long did it take you guys to get some basic familiarity with the tool, and then be the experts in integrating all of the cool stuff that you've done?
I'd say early on, I came onto the team after we had already had it for a short while, and our other colleague Jesse Kaufman had been doing most of the learning. So I'd say from me starting looking at the product to when essentially getting that all user script built, for me, getting my comfortability level with the platform was really quick. There's a KB out there. There's also contacts that you can reach out. And since, like I said, it's all PowerShell, so there's no extra coding knowledge that you need to learn from scratch. So I'd say it only took me about a month or so to get pretty familiar with the platform and what it could be done. And then I'd probably say 3 or 4 months after that, we had the all user script out there in its first iteration, which is a little different than what it is now. It's as new features have come out on the platform, we've folded those in and involved that tool as it's gone on. So I would say anywhere from 1 to a couple months to be able to learn the platform, be familiar with it, and get out there and start building your own solutions.
And the advice I would give to anybody that's getting into this or any automation platform is to start small, do the things you know how to do, and let things build upon themselves. We are in an automation first mode for our teams. We've started this a few years ago, and I expect that within 3 to 4 years that everything we do will be 100% automated. And that's the whole thing, is just start small. Don't try to boil the ocean. Get a cup of water and boil it, and do something small, and then just build upon that. And it grows pretty quick. It's like anything in IT, it's you just have to use it. You have to find uses for it, and it's it goes pretty fast.
Okay, other questions?
And have you guys used this with anything other than Microsoft? So maybe it's Java, maybe it's some other technology, maybe it's cloud.
So essentially PowerShell can run commands in other languages. So we have some instances where we're reaching out and running some bash commands on our Linux servers. We're also the web development team is a little bit more Java oriented than we are. So I know that they've got a couple different JavaScript things that they're running. You can't run anything but PowerShell in the platform, but you can reach out to it with whatever language that you need, and then you can obviously kick off a command within a PowerShell script that runs in a different language via PowerShell. So it's pretty much as flexible as PowerShell is, which is infinitely flexible essentially.
Okay, cool.
Hi, Christian here. Very good presentation. Thank you so much. I learned a lot about the platform. I just had a question about the overall security of the platform, and let's say like new clients that are wanting to get on board with the ReadyBots platform. How are they reassured that their data is secure, and the connection between maybe their on-prem equipment and on-prem data is secure with the ReadyBots platform? I know that'd be a big sticking point, especially in today's world, right?
Yeah, great question. So first off, our commitment to security, we do annual pen tests. So we hire that out. We have external security company that we work with to do the pen testing, and those results come in, and anything that is identified gets addressed right away. Our CISO oversees that operation. One of the things I like to highlight is the comparison to the alternative. So, if you look at the native automation, what do people do when they don't have an automation platform? Well, they have PowerShell scripts that are running on servers, and typically those are real security, the risk points. And we have one Fortune 100 company that actually brought us in specifically because of that. They had failed security audit on multiple occasions, annual security audits, and it was because they had these scripts that were running. So they were able to, they did, of course, an exhaustive security analysis of our platform, and they moved all of their automation into the platform. That automation, we've built in best-in-class code signing capability. We have vaulted credentials, built upon Azure Key Vault, and of course we integrate with third-party vaults, CyberArk and Thycotic and those types. We have full data encryption, data at rest, data in motion encryption. Credentials are twice encrypted, 256-bit encryption. So there's a lot of layers of security that have been implemented, and the platform supports single sign-on, so that you're not using one-off instances of credentials.
Awesome, thank you. And just one other question for me. As far as connecting the customer's on-premise data and equipment, is it just as simple as just connecting the API, like any APIs they have with the ReadyBots platform? How exactly does that work?
Yeah, so our platform is 100% cloud, so it's all built on Azure. It's microservice architecture, sort of very cutting edge technology. But we knew when we designed the platform that a lot of the use cases were going to involve on-prem systems, and so we have a Windows service that is what we call our proxy, and that is a component that is admin installed. You install that Windows service. You have to authenticate. There's private public key generation and so on that happens. to create a secure connection between that proxy and the cloud. And it's an outbound connection, so there's nothing that the organization has to do in terms of firewalls or anything like that. You install that service, and that service then phones home to your tenant and enables you to command and control from the cloud. So you can now take your bots and you can just simply direct them to execute on-prem, and you're now able to manage all of your on-prem services. And you can install multiple instances of that. So for scalability or for segregation, you know, if you have different divisions, regions, responsibilities, you can install multiple of those proxies and manage them all centrally through the platform. So we do have customers that will, for example, take a bot and run that bot on multiple proxies at the same time. So you know, for MSP, let's say, type models where you might have many clients and you want to take a bot that perhaps does a security assessment or an inventory or that type of thing. You have one instance of the bot. You can execute that bot on multiple endpoints, and the platform will automatically partition that data when it all comes back. It manages everything. You just literally choose the endpoints that you want to run it on, click run. It now goes off and it executes on all those endpoints. All the data that comes back is tagged with the endpoint, so you can see it holistically.